I'm going to try to attempt to do this as efficient as possible as I can and make it as easy understanding as possible for everyone watching. Let me fix this light here. I have a little light here and it's awesome. Well, I like my lighting even though my lighting is not the best, but I'm okay with my my lighting, okay? Don't judge me. Anywho's, we are talking about, as you all saw my thumbnail, okay? River of Blood, American Slavery from the People Who Lived It, Interviews and Photographs of Formerly Enslaved African Americans. So this is the book that we are discussing right now that I feel that you need to purchase or you need to get your hands on. And if you don't happen to get your hands on it anytime soon, either way, just for your knowledge, this book is about 35 bucks. If you do not get your hands on this book, don't worry. If you are in the area where I will have my future bookstore, okay, and it's going to be a Black bookstore, a Black literature store, okay, and I am every single book that I present here on my YouTube channel, every single book that I've read on Black history is going to be a part of my collection in my bookstore that's going to be available for folks to rent books. Just like you would go to a library, instead it'll be a private library. It would be a private library, of course, with a yearly membership, but it will be a private library to where when you come and pick out your books, nobody else literally is there for your time to pick out your books and take your books and read them. You also be a part of the yearly book, book review that I'll have. I'll have all of those things set up. This is not a video to explain necessarily that. We're talking about this book, but it's very important to know that because some people don't get their hands on these books at all. They don't get it. Please stay tuned for the rest of the video. I have some good pictures to show you. And I have some good information to give you from this book. But some folks are not able to get their hand on a book when they see it on YouTube or they see it on Google. Maybe they are not able to purchase it, or maybe their library simply just does not have a copy of this book. Okay, so River of Blood. This is edited by Richard Cahan and Michael Williams, and the foreword is done by Adam Green. Okay, now what Donna Seaman says, she's from Booklist Star Review. She gives a review on books. And she says, for the first time in this supremely well-designed and sensitively edited volume, select portraits and text are reunited, and the result is monumental. Really, really good. So I want to bring your attention right now to Miss, and if I edit this correctly, then you'll see her picture come across the screen right now. Her name is Miss Tempe Herndon Durham. Show you her here very quickly. And now you're going to see her picture come across the screen. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Tempe Herndon Durham was born into slavery about 1834 on a plantation owned by Betsy and George Herndon in Chatham County, North Carolina. On average, enslaved mothers gave birth to between 9 and 10 children. Tempe informally married Exeter Durham, who lived on a neighboring plantation. After the war, they rented and purchased a farm. She lived in Durham, North Carolina, and died in 1938. Let me tell you a little bit about what Miss Tempe Herndon Durham says. After our wedding, we went down to the cabin. But Exeter couldn't stay no longer than that night case he belonged to Mars Snipes Durham, and he had to back home. He left the next day for his plantation, but he come back every Saturday night and stay till Sunday night. I was glad when the war stopped, because then me and Exeter could be together all the time instead of Saturday and Sunday. We had 11 children. None was born before surrender and after we were set free. So I had 2 children that wasn't born in bondage. I was worth a heap to Mars George K's. I had so many children. The more children a slave had, the more they was worth. So that is from Tempe Herndon, Durham. I want to bring your attention over to Hagar Lewis. Hagar Lewis. There she is. And now you should see her come across the screen. Hagar Lewis, the youngest of Liz McFarland's 16 children, were born into slavery in 1855 on the Martin Plantation near Tyler, Texas. Her father was enslaved on a nearby farm. She was delivered along with her mother and siblings as a wedding gift to Mary Martin and John McFarland. After the war, she married A. Lewis and moved to San Antonio. Her husband died young. She raised 2 sons. One, an electrical engineer, supported her in El Paso. Miss Hagar Lewis says the following: some poor niggas were half starved. They belong to other people. Mrs. Marriott would call them in to feed them, since them outside the fence picking up scraps. They'd call out at night, Marse John, Marse John. They's afraid to come in daytime. Marse John said, what the matter now? They'd say, I's hungry. He'd say, come in and get it. He'd cure lots of meat. For we hear them hollering at night when they beat the poor niggas for begging or stealing or some crime. Some whites had a dark hole in the ground, a dungeon they called it, to put their slaves in. They carried them bread and water once a day. I was afraid of the hole. They'd tell me the devil was in that hole. I want to go ahead and bring your attention over to... I want to bring your attention over to Miss Lizzie Hill. Lizzie Hill. There she is. Miss Lizzie Hill. She's actually on the back of this book too as well. Miss Lizzie Hill. Let me tell you a little bit about Miss Lizzie Hill. Miss Lizzie Hill, born about 1843, was enslaved by Richard Dozier and his wife near Cuthbert, Georgia. Hill's recollection was not uncommon. Enslaved boys and girls were allowed to play with the slaveholders' children. White boys and girls usually took the role of superiors. Hill worked in Eufaula, Alabama as a laundress, and she was living in the home of her niece in 1937. And this is what Miss Hill had to say. I had 2 little misties about as old as me, and I played with them all them time and slept on a pallet in the room every night. They slept on that big bed. I want to bring your attention over now to Mr. Will Adams. Mr. Will Adams, here he is right here. Now you'll see his picture come across the screen. Mr. Will Adams, son of Amelia and Freeman Cavan, was born into slavery in 1857 on a plantation owned by Dave Cavan in Harrison County, Texas. Adams spent 20 years working there after the Civil War. He left to farm and do odd jobs in Marshall. He and his wife raised 10 children. This is a little bit of what Mr. Adams had to say. The Cavans are less stunks lights of their niggas, and Grandma Maria say, why shouldn't they? It was their money. I say it again. The Cavans are less thunk lots of their niggas. Of course they thought a lot of us black folks. And Grandma Maria say, well, why shouldn't they? It was their money. Of course it was. Of course it was their money to the slave owners, to the slave holders. It was absolutely their money. That's why they were afraid to end slavery, because they knew that money was going to come up short, wasn't it? All right, last person here. I'm going to discuss here, and this is 1 out of a million, right? Unfortunately, 1 out of a million slaves that need to be represented, that are not quite represented the way they need to be represented. And that's why me and many other people call ourselves modern day abolitionists, that we want to make sure that this information gets out and it's not forgotten, what our ancestors suffered for our well-being. half of our well-being, because now we're stuck in a modern day slavery. It's just not as harsh. It's not as harsh as chattel slavery. Mr. Ben Horry. It's Mr. Ben Horry right here. Ben Horry. What about Mr. Ben Horry? Ben Horry, son of Diffin Horry, was born into slavery in 1852 on the Brook Green plantation owned by Joshua Moore at Murrells Inlet, South Carolina. He sold oysters and ran a small grocery store after the war. Brook Green is now Brook Green Gardens, a sculpture park, garden, and nature preserve near the Atlantic Ocean. Horry married twice and raised 5 children. A little bit of what Mr. Horry had to say, or Horry. I've been here. I seen things. I tell you, thousands of them things happen, but I try to forget them. The worst thing I remembers was the colored officer. He was the one straight from Africa. He the boss over all the mans and womans. If omens don't do all he say, he lay task on them they ain't able to do. My mother won't do all he say. When he say, you go bond and stay till I come, she ain't doing them. So he have it in for my mother and lay task on them she ain't able to do. Then for punishment, my mother is take to the barn and strap down on thing called the pony, hands spread like this and strapped to the floor. And all to both she feet tied like this. And she be give 25 to 50 lashes till the blood flow. And my father and me stand right there and look and ain't able to lift a hand. So that's a little bit there about Mr. Horry. What an awful story. That as men, black men, they weren't able to protect our woman grandparents and ancestors the way they would have wanted to protect them, and have to constantly see their grandmothers and grandfathers and fathers and mothers be beat and their family be separated, and ultimately what turned out to be the consequence of today's society. There is one picture that I want to show you all before I end this video, which I thought was very eye-opening. Very eye-opening. Look at this if you all can see this. Very eye-opening. I'm going to see if I can take a close-up picture of that to show you all. But these are a lot of the cabins and barns that slaves had to sleep in. The worst of the worst conditions. And it's something that to an extent we took pride in, because we knew that what we could overcome and what we shall overcome, it was all worth it from what we learned. We learned some things through the havoc, right? We learned strength. We learned resilience. We learned not to depend on others because we knew that the white man wasn't going to do anything for us. Because of this reason, we learn how to do things ourselves. This is the reason why I am halfway, not all the way, but halfway in tune with Marcus Garvey. I'm halfway in tune with Malcolm X. I am 3/4 way in tune with Martin Luther King Jr. I am halfway in tune with William Still. And I am halfway, 3/4 way in tune with W.E.B. Du Bois. I am 3/4 in tune with Frederick Douglass. And I can go on and on and on. So anywho's, I am going to end this video with saying thank you all for watching the video. I hope you all enjoyed those pictures, and most of all enjoyed it because you learned something from it. You felt something from it. You felt something from that picture being shared, and perhaps you are African American And perhaps that these photos hit home, and gave you some type of awareness that this is not over. This is not over. Things have just begun to take grip of itself. And it will take even a faster grip once we get Kamala in office, right? Anywho, Obama couldn't do it just by himself, right? He needed the good Lord. He needed a few more black presidents with him. All right. I love you all very, very much. Please, y'all go ahead and get this book. This book is awesome. And if you all happen to get a hold of this book, I want you all to please leave me a comment below. Let me know. Share your experience with me and with everybody else who reads my comments. You have a beautiful and blessed day. I end this video now.